Just a reminder, you can catch me recording this podcast live on AMP. AMP is a new live radio app that lets you call in and chat with me in person while recording. Get the app on Apple's App Store and make sure you follow me at John Middlekauff to get notified when I go live. Live here with my main man, Jason Sobel. Breaking news on Tuesday. But before we dive into everything that's going on with LIV, the PIF, the PGA Tour, Tiger Phil, can I tell you about my friends at Gametime? Download the Gametime app, fastest growing ticket app in America. Happens to be the official ticketing app of this show. Type in the promo code GOLOW, GOLOW, and get $20 off your first pair of tickets. You want to, when the PGA Tour and LIV have their first event together, we don't know when that's going to happen, but when it does, use the Gametime app, download it, promo code GOLOW, get $20 off, enjoy yourself, download it right now. Okay, Sobel, I was fully prepared before, I guess you're on the East Coast, so most of us woke up to this news, to give you your flowers, and this be a celebration of a Victor Hovland hater turned into a Victor Hovland better and hit on just an awesome, the biggest win of the guy's career, just an awesome moment. And now that's just completely irrelevant. I'm not going to lie.
The only guy trying to take a victory lap today is Jay Monahan, and I'm not even sure that's going to work for him. So no victory laps for me. We got work to do.
Okay. I'm sure you've been on the phone. You've been texting like most of us, just the news, your initial reaction.
My initial reaction was, when this news came out, is it April 1st? Because I did not think that was real. Secondly, it's like we're all living in a simulation. This is season 5 of Succession, essentially. Never saw any of this coming, especially not today. But at least we have company in this, because none of the parties involved, essentially the players, had any idea either. I immediately texted 2 players that I know fairly well, one on LIV, one on the PGA Tour, and I sent them this news, and I said, what do you think? You know about this? And both of them go, no, this is the first I've heard about it in the hour and a half or whatever, 2 hours since I've seen social media posts from dozens of players who are like, wait, what's going on? How did this happen? Why did this happen? I think the players, especially the PGA Tour players, who were told for the past year and a half to be loyal, to stick with the tour, to, hey, things are going to work out for you in the long run, are now going to be incensed that they were like, wait, I could have left, made 10, 20, $30 million on LIV, and then with no penalty, you just merge with LIV and then come back to them. I think they are going to have more questions than answers. And so there's, I hate to say it right now, you're going to ask me questions over the next little bit, John, and most of my answers are going to be, I have no freaking clue. I was on a text chain with my boss as I was writing a story for Action, and the first thing that my boss put was, what the fuck? I said, actually, I might use that. That's going to be the lead for my story today. That might actually be how I start things out.
Yeah, there's so many angles we can take. I think on the most basic is, I think a lot of people on this merger now, listen, anytime you're in business with someone and they have all the money, it does feel like the Saudis now run professional golf. I know they're partners and they're merged, but they are funding you, right? So, and their money is unlimited. This is, I'm not trying to get political here, but when people rip on CBS or ABC or NBC News run by Big Pharma, well, yeah, they're their biggest advertiser. So wherever the money comes from, they have a lot of control. And now PIF, who, is the Saudi investment fund that a lot of stuff's going viral of his talk a year ago with Jim Nantz. Obviously, a lot of players have been very outspoken, from Rory to Rahm to Tiger to JT. And now it feels like the reason they did this is because potentially, a lot of unknown, would they have lost in court litigation-wise and they had no choice? Or again, we're only a couple hours from the news, there's just so much money that was offered by PIF, he couldn't turn it down.
There's so many questions here. Again, I wish I had some answers. I think that,
doesn't he have to ask the players to make a move like this? Isn't a players run tour?
Policy board, yeah. The players really don't have a say in it. They elect people to the policy board, and policy board makes, it's Succession. You watch Succession. It's, hey, we got to go to the board. There's not the guy who's like the VP for Waystar Royko, who was like, man, how come you didn't ask me? I've been with the company for 20. Well, you're not on the board. You don't get to make these decisions. Very, very similar to that. There's a few things here. Okay, first of all, the pending litigation, I think, had a lot to do with this because there are going to be findings on both sides that they didn't want necessarily uncovered and made public. And I think that at some point, the two sides probably looked at each other and go, hey, look, you don't want this out there. We don't want that out there. How are we going to figure this out? Well, let's just get together and have a merger. I think Jay Monahan, and I've said this to you in the past, and I've said this everywhere, that Jay Monahan
CEO, Sobel, CEO of professional golf,
screwed up at the beginning. He was arrogant right from the start. He and everybody else aligned with the PGA Tour was arrogant in thinking, this is not a threat to us. Oh, we've had other leagues say, hey, we're going to start a golf league. Yeah, that's no big deal. Our players aren't going to leave. And instead of trying to do this right off the bat, they just kind of tried to shoo him away. It's not a big deal. I think he was arrogant over the past year instead of saying, well, look, LIV is now a viable product, and we have to look at what they're doing, and maybe someday we'll come to an agreement. No, Jay was all in on, they're bad people. It's a bad league. They're doing bad things. Ours is better. Here's why ours is so much better than what they're doing. And there was no concession towards, hey, you know what? I think it's pretty interesting. The team concept, yeah, that's kind of cool. It was we're great. They're not. Here's why you should consume our product. Here's why you shouldn't consume theirs. And so I think that arrogance is going to hurt him in the long run. Now that, hey, we're all on the same team, we're partners. It is a weird day in the world of golf. I think a lot of players, a lot of people in the game are going to be, I think Jay Monahan's probably going to get the brunt of this, but like I said, there's a policy board. Jay is only one small part of it. He's the commissioner, he's the head, he's the face of everything going on right now, but there's other powers that be involved in this that are helping to make these decisions.
Well, again, there's going to be a lot over the next, really the next 2 weeks, because the U.S. Open is right around the corner. Talk about this, and it's players versus players, right? Like Koepka versus Rory, Rahm versus Phil, but it's been Jay versus Greg Norman. Speaking of another lightning rod, by the time people are listening to this, maybe news that he's officially out. He wasn't named to anything officially. It does this feel like it spells the end for Greg? And in fairness to him, he kind of did what he was paid to do, create some waves and kind of get this ball rolling with the LIV Tour, right?
So I got the sense from Greg over the past year that this was all about disruption. Greg had wanted to do the World Golf Championships before the World Golf Championships existed. The PGA Tour said, no thanks. And then the PGA Tour essentially stole his plan and implemented it. And so this was his way of getting back of the revenge tour. This is the Greg Norman's Taylor Swift revenge tour of getting back at the PGA circuit and trying to beat them at their own game and disrupt the world of professional golf. And once he did that, yeah, okay. Greg would tweet, great job by the Fleeks this week. Big win. Wasn't as into it as I think. On a daily basis, there was not this sense from LIV that like, hey, we're going to go out and beat them. I didn't think that they were necessarily a threat to go get more superstar players anytime soon. It felt like whether the money had dried up a little bit, whether the interest level from PGA Tours had dried up, maybe the players looked at it and said, okay, now we're making a lot more money on the PGA Tour. Granted, we can thank LIV for that, but I don't have to jump ship because, the PGA Tour is giving me more money now. I will say it was very, very interesting. Yasser Al-Rumayyan, who's the governor of the Public Investment Fund, which of course owns and operates LIV Golf, was shoulder to shoulder on CNBC in the studio with Jay Monahan this morning. And he was asked, did Greg Norman know about this? He said, oh yeah, sure. I just called him a few minutes ago. I don't think Greg is necessarily on the inner circle. I mean, to compare it to Succession again, there was a Greg in that show who wasn't necessarily on the inside circle of everything that was going on. Greg Norman might have been very much in the same realm.
I think a lot of people definitely on social media right now are taking a victory lap for all the high end guys that didn't go. Rahm turned down hundreds of millions. Hideki, clearly the JTs of the world, Spieth, Rory. But those guys are so rich, would it impact their life? They're going to end up making so much money in the big picture. I do think so I don't think they're huge losers like that group. And I think they didn't want to I do think the big winner though, is Phil Mickelson. And he's already chirping a little bit as we're recording this. He's got to be feeling pretty good. He's got to be feeling pretty good. He's been turning down podiums at these majors since he came, I think, late last year. And then obviously this year, I would expect him next week in LA to fucking strut right up to that podium, baby.
Yeah, and he's probably going to talk about all, hey, this was the plan all along. I love the PGA Tour. I wanted to work with them. This was my idea to get LIV to, sort of light a fire under the PGA Tour and get them playing. Look at what all the players have to do. They have to thank me for going to LIV, bringing players to LIV, getting more exposure over there, and it brought more money to all them. You got more money in their pockets. It was a weird way of doing everything. Look, if you're one who wants to give Phil full credit for everything he did here, that's fine. I'm okay with it. I still think he could have gone about it probably a classier way than he did over the past year, but it's fine. I have no idea. I mean, I have not had any idea what's going on with Phil for a while now. He can obviously still play some good golf. We saw it at Augusta National. Besides that, look, all I can tell you is that I've known Phil Mickelson for a long time. Phil always has an agenda. Whatever Phil says, whatever Phil tweets, there's a reason for it. There's a reason why he's doing that. He thinks, and this comes to part of the whole, I think I'm the smartest man in the room type of thing, which sometimes he is and sometimes he's not. But Phil constantly thinks he's playing chess and everyone else is playing checkers. Again, whether that's true or not, but Phil is trying to think 3 steps ahead. And so I think that if we go back and look at his timeline of tweets and things that he's said, he's going to be able to pull out a few things there, here and there and say, look, see what I did? See right there? And he'll take that victory lap.
I think if you ran into someone today at the golf course, on the street, at work, start talking about this subject, most casual people will act like they're going to start playing together, right? That's, I think, what the headline feels like. When you read the details of the press release, it doesn't necessarily reflect that. Again, a lot of moving parts, a lot of unknown. From your understanding, are we going to see like Cam Smith, Koepka here at the Travelers in a couple of weeks? Because it doesn't quite feel like that yet. But I also don't expect like Spieth JT to create some team. We're kind of in a weird spot because I think there's a lot of unknown on how this is going to play out on the course, right? Because that's ultimately what this affects, right?
So I think it remains the same throughout the end of the 2023 season. And if you look at the PGA Tour, concludes its season August 27th, LIV concludes theirs November 5th, and the DP World Tour on November 19th. I think everything remains as is for the time being. But I think moving forward, that all changes. And yes, I do think that if Brooks Koepka
why would LIV still host events?
Tournament of Champions. I don't know. I don't know any of this. I look, you're asking questions that I don't have answers to. And quite frankly, I could be a top 10 player in the world who's playing the PGA Tour or playing LIV and be sitting here with you right now and say, I have no idea. I'm going to read to you. This is the 3rd paragraph of the press release. Notably, today's announcement will be followed by a mutually agreed end to all pending litigation between the participating parties. Further, the 3 organizations will work cooperatively and in good faith to establish a fair and objective process for any players who desire to reapply for membership with the PGA Tour or the DP World Tour following the completion of the 2023 season, and for determining fair criteria in terms of readmission consistent with each tour's policies. To me, that tells us they don't really have an idea yet that, if you play LIV, you can now play the PGA Tour, the DP World Tour next year if you want. We're going to let you back in. Maybe we'll give you some sort of penalty, but probably not, since it's a merger. And why would we penalize guys that now work for us? So I can't see that happening, but it smells to me, John, that if Brooks Koepka or Cam Smith or somebody like that wants to go play the Century Tournament of Champions the first week of January 2024, they'll say, sure, come on. We're all partners here. You can come play.
Yeah, if Koepka wants in on TPC Scottsdale or those guys want to play Riv, that feels like where it opens up is these big events, the Memorial, these guys want back in, they're going to get in. And, is Koepka likely to be as involved in some of the team events? So that's one I'd have circled. That I could see Brooks playing some less live events. I do think it's fair to assume the Saudis, and you've seen them do this in soccer, and obviously, and I'm not a big F1 guy, but they got their hands involved in that, is they wanted it on golf. And so Live was a way in. And now that they have this merger, I think it's fair to assume that the importance of quote unquote live golf is less important as long as they're into the overall umbrella of the sport. And now they're meat hooks because of their cash flow, which is literally unlimited. I just feel my overall reaction is it feels like the Saudis and the PIF and Yasser and what's his name, SBF, or that's the crypto guy, but you know who I mean, runs golf. Like they're in charge now because they're essentially going to sign the check. So will these purses now, $20 million, these elevated events. Well, now the Saudi money's involved. I mean, are we going to see like a $50 million event? Because that feels like it's on the table.
Yeah, probably. It's more money for everybody. I mean, I guess if you're a player and you're mad right now, I think you're going to be placated very, very quickly when they start talking about how much money is now going to be involved in these events. That I can go have one good week next year, and I'm going to make more money than I had in the previous 5 years. So, that's certainly possible. I don't know. I mean, we talk about who runs golf. Nobody really runs golf right now, anyway. So, look, I think that probably the people making these decisions are the people that are not front facing as you think. And again, Jay Monahan is going to get some of the credit and all of the blame. And, he is going to be the name that's front and center as the face of everything. But this goes way beyond. It transcends just Monahan. There's some big names on that policy board with the PGA Tour who I've heard have had conversations with Liv in recent weeks, and they had a big part in making this happen. Again, I said it earlier, this pending litigation and the findings that were going to be made public, don't undervalue the impact of not wanting things made public and how that fueled their decision making. Because I mean, this has gone from 0 to 60 very, very quickly. This has gone from we hate them, our product is better. There is never going to be any talks between us, any kind of merger, anything like that, to, by the way, it's Tuesday morning, we've got a merger, let's break the news on CNBC. I mean, this has gone very, very quickly. There are very few things that can make it go that quickly, but I think the ability to keep secrets secret, that'll fuel a whole lot of things moving forward.
Unless you got something else, I'm going to end. I think the big winner here is just golf, because one thing we saw with Koepka winning is the separation of just some of the top guys, Cam Smith, Brooks, even Bryson when he's good, not being around, the villains, having those guys back interacted. I like watching the DP World Tour on Saturday and Sunday morning if I get up really early and having a cup of coffee. Obviously, they were directly impacted, losing some of their big names that occasionally play over there. If now we get the combination of all these guys playing together again, there's animosity, there's added storylines. I do think it's good for the entertainment standpoint, and that's what I care about the most, and I think what most fans care about the most, because most fans aren't profiting from this, beside if you bet on Victor Hovland last week to win the Memorial. That I do think this element of getting everyone back together, beside just the 4 majors a year, if that's 8 or 9 times now, benefits us all from an entertainment standpoint.
I think you're not wrong about that. By the way, wasn't that a Shooter McGavin line? I think the big winner today is the game of golf. We could let Shooter out and let him analyze this whole thing. Look, I've said it for the past year that, and I've said it in jest and joking around, but hey, it would be really cool if we took all the good players from LIV and then all the good players from the DP World Tour and from the PGA Tour, and we put them all together and they played against each other all the time. Wouldn't that be awesome? Well, guess what? That's what we're going to have. It also looks very similar to what the PGA Tour was pre-2022. So, I mean, it's not like nothing we've ever seen before. It's not like, wow, for the first time ever, Brooks Koepka and Cameron Smith are going to play in PGA Tour events. We're gonna see what that's like. No, it wasn't that long ago they were playing in PGA Tour events, so we're basically just hitting the reset button on this whole thing, and it just goes back to me calling it a simulation, and we all just got jobbed for the last year and a half, yelling at each other on social media for a long time, and then going, oh, all right, yeah, I guess we're just going back to everyone just go play golf now for more money.
Yeah, Cam Smith, the Players Champ last year, was his parking spot was removed. So I wonder if he gets his parking spot back at TPC Sawgrass.
Oh, come on, that's just water under the bridge now. No big deal. We're all friends. Come on, it was just part of the negotiation process.
Any Michael Block takes for the Canadian Open this week? He played good. You see, he beat Ludwig. He almost qualified for the U.S. Open. He had a good 36 holes yesterday.
This is who I really feel for, because Michael Block could have, if he had an agent, he could have had his agent call LIV a couple of weeks ago after the PGA and say, hey, look, he's got a chance to play in the Charles Schwab Challenge and the RBC Canadian Open, but for the very small nominal signing bonus of $10 million, Michael would love to come play LIV golf instead. That's how I would have approached this if I were him, going from club pro to making some serious cheese over on LIV golf. Well, apparently that won't be necessary anymore. So, Michael's going to have to go hoof it in Canada this week without a U.S. Open berth in next week's field. So poor Michael.
I'll get you out of here on this. I know you like Tyrrell Hatton this week. Do you already have your pick for LACC?
Nah, I was going to spend the next couple of days doing it. I think we're starting to see a little separation, because for the first few months of this year, it's like, man, I look at the top 20 in the world, like all those guys are really, really good, and I can't really separate. Now we're starting to see like Scotty Scheffler is really, really good. He's playing really, really well. Brooks Koepka goes to majors, plays really well. Those guys are going to be up there. Who else? Cameron Smith might be on top of my list. He's going to go to the majors. He's going to roll in putts. He's going to play well. Victor Hovland, of course, who just won the other day. He's taken it to a different gear. I mean, that was a different Victor Hovland that I watched on the back nine on Sunday. A guy that wasn't just smiling and laughing off a bad chip. I mean, this was a guy that had full game face going. And I'm not sure I've seen that from Victor before. I think something's changed in him. But you start looking at guys like that and you're like, they're playing better. It doesn't mean Xander Schauffele can't win. Doesn't mean Justin Thomas can't win. These guys are just playing better on a regular basis than those players.
And even Rory, who, the eye test, it feels like he's playing shitty, even though he top tens in basically every event he's playing in right now, is on a completely different level than guys I always bet on, the Xanders, the Finaus. If you're even if you're down on Rory, you're better off betting him than some of those random guys, because they haven't even been. I'm so tired of betting on that crew of the second tier guys that get, pretty good odds. And then you just look up, they're struggling to make the cut. And Rory, you're shitting on.
The odds are pretty good. Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah. Max Homa's got a decent number. It's not.
No.
Rory, there's a non-zero chance that Rory wins by 17 shots this week. Right? Hey, lift all the weight from what you've had on you for the last year and a half to hey, bro, it's cool. Don't worry about it anymore. Just go play golf. He may birdie every single hole in Canada this week. I have no idea. Or it could be weighing on him even more that he's getting so many questions about, he's got to deal with this, deal with that. He's on phone calls that he misses the cut. I have absolutely no idea. But if anything, I think at least in the long term, if not the short term, I think this frees up Rory to play better golf.
Yeah. If his number gets to 13, 14 to 1 for the U.S. Open, I could be intrigued. I could be.
Yeah.
Probably stupid, but I could be. Okay,
yeah,
so
I have a feeling he plays well. Inferior field this week. Is two-time defending champ, granted, in 2 different decades on 2 different golf courses, but he is the defending champion here, and I think he'll play well, and I think he'll keep that number from getting too long next week. I think he stays at probably 10 to 12.
That Canadian Open last year was a big moment. Him, JT, Finau, kind of vibing on the course when the LIV stuff was hot and heavy. Now they're all friends again.
I don't think we're getting that this year.
No, I don't think so. Okay, so we'll enjoy the phones today.
Thanks, buddy. See if we have some news for us next week.
Later, bro.